Carol, Suzanne, Luis, Joe, Beth, and Susan, and we have Michael visiting for tonight. So first of all, we have to review the minutes from July 7th meeting. If you've had time to look at them, then do I have anyone to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, David.
I second.
Okay, the next on the agenda is persons present, but not on the agenda. There isn't anyone here, I don't believe, that is not on our agenda. But then I'd like to move to member application with Michael Stout. And Michael, if you could move to a microphone, I'd like for you just to take a minute or so and tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in CPAC.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Thank you.
So thank you guys. I have an interest in being on the board because I've kind of been involved in public art for about 20 years. Initially just kind of started an interest in my college studies in graphic design, and then decided to pursue a graduate degree in community planning. And my primary interest there was kind of the role of art as an economic development factor and a community building factor as well. So ever since then, I've worked in nonprofits that work within the public art realm. I was in Cincinnati for a number of years and worked with a kind of mural arts organization that largely was a youth apprentice program where they trained youth through summer programs to work with professional artists on public art projects. And so that was a kind of real formative experience for me to see that. And I continue that work now with Carbondale Arts. So I work with them as education director, and we're kind of launching some similar programs where youth will be paid to participate in art projects. And hopefully some of those are public art and community art projects as well. And I'd like to make sure that, you know, being on this board, that there's some good synergies between the work that I'm doing there and the work that the town's doing, and, you know, really look to find good ways to get involved with the community and bring some of my expertise and skills and interests in public art to bear on that. So that's kind of a general synopsis. Anything else that I can address or answer for you guys?
Thank you. How long have you been in the Valley, and what brought you here?
I've been in the Valley since 2015, so about 6 years. My current wife, or my now wife, when we moved here, she was not my wife. She brought me here. We met in Indianapolis, and she got a job at a landscape architecture firm in the Valley, and I was an avid fly fisher at the time, and so I followed her willingly, and we now have 2 kids and stable housing, and so we're excited to consider this our home.
Thank you so much. It just sounds like such an interesting career path that you've taken. And I'm anxious to hear more about it, because economic development in regards to the arts and communities, I think, is exactly what so many of us are interested in. And how that is achieved is it's quite a lofty goal. And I thank you and commend you for that. So I'm going to open it up to the commission members and see if anyone has any questions for you. And if not, then we'll move on to the budget. So anybody got any questions for him? Luis.
Michael, so great to see your application here for CPAC. Just a quick question, as the board trustees would like to vet and really meet the applicants to our community advisory boards, would you be opposed to coming and attending a board of trustees meeting just to formalize your application?
Not opposed at all. No, that would be fine.
Do you know Brian is on this?
Yep.
Any other questions for Michael?
You do live right in Carbondale?
Yep.
Right?
I live in Cedar Grove, which
Oh,
is just across from 133. Yep. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for the work that you've done, not even in Carbondale, but with community and arts and kids. And then what you are formally doing right now with CCAH or Carbondale
Yeah.
Arts, and hopefully some potential things we can explore here.
Great. Yeah, no, it's a real interest of mine and something that I've continuously pursued and keep coming back to. So would be happy to kind of participate in that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Luis?
Sorry, just one thing, Susan, Beth, and I'm not sure if your microphone is on because I can hear Michael.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
I
That's
can.
Oh,
hybrid model. Just make sure
sorry about that, guys.
closely to the microphone that way. it captures.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay, we're going to move on to the budget.
Do you want to explain the 3 meeting?
That's a good idea. Thank you. Anne, would you explain the meetings to Michael, and would you also please use your microphone?
You gotta press that button until the red button comes up. There you go.
We meet monthly, except for when we cancel because we're light on agenda items. Our primary function is to request applications, and then we vote on the application. We each vote individually, and then we compile the results. And the board requires attendance. So it says if you miss 3 consecutive meetings or 6 non-consecutive ones, it's considered a resignation.
Sure.
But if you notify Kay or one of us and there's a reason, then that seems to be fine.
Doctor's note will do.
Yeah, well, yeah. You just don't disappear.
Sure. I think that's smart.
And then there's 3 meetings before he becomes a full.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and you have to attend 3 meetings. Then your name goes to the town trustees.
Great. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything
Louise.
to add, Louise?
Sorry, Susan, and just one quick question. So with Michael potentially coming on, would he be coming on as a full member, alternate, or I don't know it off the top of my head in terms of what the number of members are, full members, voting members are allowed on CPAC?
He would come up as a
15.
full member.
15. Kay just looked it up.
Thank you, Kay. Great.
There are no alternates.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Michael, and we'll move on to the budget. We do not have, which is why it was not included in your packet, a current budget, because the person that prepares the budget has been out of town and Laurie is not with us tonight. So all I know is my back of the envelope bookkeeping, where we began with from the last July 7th meeting, we had $3,700. There was $1,000 that had not been journaled, but had been approved. It took us to 2,700. We paid Margaret Mathers her honorarium for 250, which took us to 2,450. We paid Best in Show, that was $1,000. So my back of the envelope shows that we have $1,450 left. And I do not know, which was a question for Lori tonight in regards to cafe, how much cafe is going to cost us this year? And is that charge journaled in 21 or 22? Because I don't know I do not know when cafe actually gets an invoice to us. So that's where we are with the budget. Any questions or comments on the budget? We will have a current budget and accounting for our next October meeting.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe it's tangential, but semi-budget related, I guess. Where does, if any place, the 1% art program come in, if any, and where does the sale of artwork come? There, I know that the town, I mean, when the artwork gets sold, and we've sold 2 pieces, portions go to the artist, and a portion, I don't know if it's like a third, goes to the town, but does it go to the town? Does it go to our committee? Does it go to the 1%? Where does all of that fit?
Louise, can you take that question?
So that's a good question, David, and I don't have a clear answer for you on that. I think that's something we will have to check in with Renee on to have a clear understanding of where those funds go. I had sort of a similar question to what you were bringing up, because since we don't have a full budget picture in front of us, with the town really gearing up for next budget year, if there's anything that we wanted to make adjustments to, or I know like one of the items for discussion is about the vouchers for artists. So anything that we're thinking about in terms of CPAC and funding, it's something we want to kind of bring up now. Hopefully it's not too late.
So Louise, how do we do that? And who do we have that discussion with?
I think it's as simple as emailing Renee. Or you mean the question from David, or you mean the overall?
Not only the question from David, but also the possibility of an increase in our budget for 22.
So, you know, that was actually something I was going to bring up as part of our larger agenda, but with other, and I would say other, but with community advisory boards, what we typically do is we have a yearly check-in with the Board of Trustees. And I don't think that's something that has happened with CPAC, to my knowledge, recently. And I think it's something that's important that we need to put on the agenda and really help to kind of lobby for the council. And obviously I can help with that to, you know, bring light to what everyone here does, what the artists do, to really help with public art and bring that, you know, flavor to our town, and therefore help to increase the budget. You know, that could just be gradually over year to continue the mission of what CPAC does. So I'll email Dan, and it's really Kevin who's coming in as interim town manager to put this on a future agenda so we can have a check-in. Ask Renee for a up-to-date budget, so to help answer David's question, and then hopefully, you know, we can make that that increase. I don't know honestly how much. I'm not even going to put a figure to it.
Because everyone knows we have sold 2 pieces. So what we're all curious about is the percentage that we get, CPAC gets, or the town gets for the sale of those 2 pieces. Where does that go? And,
Right.
you know, it's kind of back to, well, if that money went back into our budget for 21, we would not have an opportunity to spend it by year end. So kind of wonder, where does the money go?
No, that's a valid question from David and from you. So I think it's something we need to just get a picture from Renee of where those funds have gone.
Also, Luis, you hinted at something, and I just want to make sure. Are you suggesting that members of this committee, such as, let's say, the chairpersons, once a year or something like that, or whatever the period is, report to the Board of Trustees about what the committee's doing and try to solicit increases in funds and things like that?
It's not even so much, I think, about soliciting funds. I think it's a routine item that really is some, a yearly check-in with all our volunteer community, community boards. And so while we do that with Parks and Rec, to my knowledge, I don't think we've done anything recently with CPAC. And so I want to make sure it's put up on a future agenda to kind of talk about what CPAC's doing.
Great.
If I think we can have the funding be its own separate discussion. And I know that, Susan, maybe when I transitioned onto here, that may have been something that was kind of slightly increased because I can remember Marty bringing that to this meeting at one point, just in terms of increasing. I think it might have been increasing honorariums. Again, I might be wrong there, but I think I can recall that being something that was up for discussion at some point.
In adding to that, let's move on to discussion of an artist voucher or the possibility of increasing an honorarium, because it ties right back into the budget.
Right.
In years past, there has not been a year where we have overspent, because we really cannot overspend. We either have the money or we don't. But at the end of every December, there is money left that has not been spent. Sometimes it's a couple of thousand, sometimes it's only a few hundred, depending on printing that was done, depending on any additional publicity or maintenance or anything that was required. So we don't have a set number, we don't have a set amount of money that was left at the end of each year. Because of the accounting system we are on, we either use it or we lose it. So starting January 1, we start in all over again. We've discussed in the past whether we wanted to entertain the idea of a voucher for artists regarding lodging or expenses in their coming here, or to simply increase the honorarium by $50. If we increased it by $50, that is $750. According to my back of the envelope figures, we would have that money. Now, again, we can't spend that money until 22. But over the past years, it appears that we may have enough to increase the honorarium or to have some sort of a voucher. So that being said, I'd like to open the floor to discussions from everyone as to what do you think you lean towards? Do you lean towards a voucher? Do you lean towards an honorarium increase? And with that, I'll just open it up to everyone.
I just want to say, I believe the honorarium is $900 at this time. And so I would recommend increasing it to $1,000. Or the voucher doesn't have to be $100 for the voucher. But if we do increase the honorarium, I'd like it increased by $100. Personal opinion. So, anybody else?
I agree with you. And I think that it would just be a little bit cleaner. Trying to get vouchers to everyone might be a bit of a headache, and just to increase the total amount makes sense.
Of the two ideas, but there's a question that's going to come before that, but I sort of prefer the idea of the voucher because one of the things I think we want to do is to encourage the artists to come and visit. And if it gets folded in to their honorarium, will they mentally say, oh, I should use some of that for travel? Whereas if it's just separated out as a voucher, I think it provides encouragement for people to come here, which is something I think that we would like to see is when the artists show up, it makes that tour and experience much more rewarding.
It also.
But then I have, Beth, just 1 second.
Yeah.
I have another question though, just in general, which is when was the last time the honorarium was raised? Has it always been 900 and has that been going on for years? And when was the last time it was increased?
Joe, do you remember when the last time was? It's been 900 for a long time.
I think they increased it last year. Maybe it was 700 and then it was 8. I don't really know, but it went up to 900 pretty recently.
I think so too.
Yeah, so
Do you remember, Carol?
Do not.
Okay, Carol's only half here.
So Carol, would you talk into the microphone and tell me kind of what your thoughts are, either increase in the honorarium or trying to tackle, do a voucher?
Is this on? I think it is.
Yes, thank you.
Luis's mic is muted. Luis's mic is muted.
No, I didn't say anything.
I think.
But we want you to.
Oh,
Well,
I will let Carol finish.
The idea of a voucher is, I guess, the way I drift right now. However, should we ever end up with a shortage, don't we want to have something available that would, what if we ended up only having 700 again? Could that happen?
Yes. However, right now, my desire is just to have this philosophical discussion. Perhaps ask for an increase. We wouldn't be asking for a lot, 1,500 maybe at the most. So I think we should talk about, do we like either of these options? And if so, which do you prefer?
Yeah, Louise, thanks.
Sure. I mean, I like the idea of the voucher option only because I think we can already work with the chamber. They have those, what is it, the Carbondale like certificates, bucks that are accepted at most places here. And from talking to a few artists, I understand the idea of a hotel, but I think most of them end up, either coming in their own like camper vans or things like that. So even if they're given at least something to spend on food at local restaurants, that'll help. Or I think a few of them were camping up pretty like far up there, almost like near Rudai. So unless we're working with Parks and Rec to like reserve some spots at the right there at the RV park, I don't know how far that like an actual like hotel voucher would go, but I think giving them the ability to go out and for dinner, lunch, whatever while they're here and not have to spend their own money, I think is the way to go for me.
Can, I just want to get clarity on the distinction between a voucher and the honorarium. Someone can delineate those to me in terms of the recipient's ability to use them. Is the honorarium discretionary? Is that just money and they can potentially use it in advance of coming here. Okay, and then the voucher is redeemable with local businesses. Is that kind of how that works? Okay,
Well, yeah,
okay,
if they show up, it's how they choose to use it.
right. Well, I think,
A hotel.
so I think one of the nice things about the voucher is if they show up, and I think this is another incentive for them to show up above and beyond their work being installed and exhibited, is it helps stimulate business directly to the local economy in that it's redeemable. And I think that's really, part of kind of the mission of who we are and what we do is we're part of the community and we're trying to support other local businesses, be they for-profit or not-profit. So I like that. I don't know how that works. Like how are vouchers secured? Do we go out and ask, or do we have a local businesses that historically year over year make vouchers available?
No, Louise, did you
Go
speak
ahead, Susan.
Carbondale Bucks?
What's that?
Yeah, Beth, what I was saying is the chamber is already set up to offer, they sell and they give out vouchers that can be used at a variety of businesses. So
that, yeah, okay, so that process is already
yeah,
set up. And then just out of curiosity, is part of that hotels?
that's a good question. We'd have to ask the chamber to see where, because it's constantly being updated in terms of where it's accepted, but I'm sure Andrew would be very amenable to helping with that.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know this, but I feel like part of the monies that the chamber comes is from heads and beds from local hotels. I don't know that for sure. But if that's so, maybe that's something we could, kind of revisit and create that cycle of reciprocity.
I almost think we could lower the honorarium if we included 2 nights in a hotel, because that makes it a lot more easy to come. And also it'd make it, especially since we have that art walk, you have to be here for that. So where are you going to stay? In a camp out or stay in a hotel? Hotel is easily $300 for 2 nights. But that's really attractive to me, I think, is having like 2 nights in the hotel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, as much as this is such a honor for the artists as it is for us to have their work and them here. I mean, that would be a financial hardship for me if I lived out of state. That would potentially be prohibitive. So that's just.
We seem really split here. We have Joe, who has thrown a whole new idea out there, very good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have David, who leans toward a voucher and leans toward honorarium. Now, Carol, a voucher, Suzanne, honorarium, Joe, who knows, Beth, a voucher. So it almost looks like it almost looks like we've leaned more towards vouchers.
Yeah, I'm not sold on honorarium.
Okay. So
I think the case has been made very well for vouchers.
I agree, but I think also it'd be good to get some further information and then maybe have the discussion next month as far as hotels.
Okay, I will put it on an action point that I will find out from the chamber exactly what the Carbondale Bucks will cover. And then maybe we will also have Brittany and Brian back for the October. And another thing, Carol brought up a really good point. What if next year or the following year, we don't have enough money to accommodate an increase in the honorarium, and we were relying on the voucher can always be pulled back. We don't have to offer the voucher, but once we have said in print, cafe, that we are going to offer either 900, 950, or 1,000, we're bound by that. So I think we've raised some really good discussions tonight on this, and I'll do more research, and we're getting further down the line on this, and we'll talk about it in the October meeting. But before I leave it, is there anyone that has anything else, any other thoughts about this possibility before we move on? Okay, moving on.
You know, I did just think one of the arguments against it when we had this conversation months ago was, what about the people that camp? But I think we almost eliminated that tonight when we talked about chamber bucks, because we can give people a choice if it's a finite amount for hotel or food or a combination.
Yeah, that has been the sticking point before. Some people camp, some people stay in a hotel. But let me find out the extent of these bucks, because it'd be great if there is one of the gas stations that can take the bucks. Because even if someone is cooking for themselves in an RV or whatever, they can certainly, everybody can use gas. So anyhow, let me work on that, and I'll put that on the action point for next meeting.
Can I just make another thought about the voucher is potentially, if it were difficult to secure vouchers for hotel stays for everybody, also in conjunction with what you're raising, the idea that not everybody may want to stay in a hotel. Should we think about potentially offering vouchers that have a fixed dollar amount, i.e. we can offer our guests vouchers that are valued at, $200. And you can redeem that either as a hotel stay or as gas, maybe offer those variables in there. Is that kind of what we're talking about, or just generally speaking? Like kind of a grab bag of vouchers. Okay, I wasn't clear on that.
Well, Beth, again, let me talk to the chamber and find out.
All right, thanks.
What the parameters are on this. Because if you threw out a number of $200, if it is a dollar for dollar transfer, we couldn't afford it. But again, let me find out, okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Got it. All right, let's move on to a calendar. Anne had a really good idea of laying out a 6-month calendar. And so Anne, let me have you speak to that. And so thanks.
Okay, do we want to do that without Laurie here? I think what I wanted to do was a tentative calendar of when our call for proposals would go out, when we close it, when we meet. I think we've been meeting in February at CMC. Is that right, or is it March?
That is.
I didn't.
We meet in
February. So we could sort of walk backwards, or we may want to wait for, because last time we suggested one, we were wrong.
Well, how about if I propose that Anne and I meet with Laurie prior to the October meeting, and we will set a calendar that will take us to July of next year. And what the calendar will do is show the commission members, when are we going to finalize Cafe? When in the month of December do we launch Cafe? When will voting begin in January? When will we have our final voting, our in-person voting? And we'll take it from there. How does that sound?
Tremendous.
Good.
Good.
Okay, good. I'll put that on an action sheet for Ann and myself to meet with Lori on a calendar.
Okay.
Could you send that out after your meeting? Could you send out the tentative calendar to everybody in advance of the next meeting?
Yeah, I will. Okay. The next is an update on 3rd Street. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because Brian had been assigned the task of emailing approximately 300 artists to see if anyone was interested in the 3rd Street space. As you know, there are 2 spaces there, the Eagle and the marble sculpture. And technically, kind of refreshing everyone's memory, technically those contracts expired the end of May. But because we didn't have anything else to put in their place, they have stayed there. And those 2 are to accommodate either local artists who did apply to Cafe and did not get in, or other local artists that we would like to feature for a year. There is no honorarium that is involved. So technically, either of those spaces can be bumped until May the 31st. So Brian unfortunately had doctor's appointment in Denver, and I tried to contact him today and wasn't able to get him to find out, first of all, had he been able to send out the email blast? And if he did he get any response? So Joe, I'm also asking you if you know of local artists that you would like to contact, because we'd love to have one of your pieces there, or we would like to be able to showcase others, because those 2 pieces have been there for 18 months approximately. So they know that they are on a standby basis and are willing to give up their space if we have someone else that would like to take it until May the 31st. So Joe, I'm going to ask you what your comments are.
Well, I can ask around. I've actually got a piece that's been in Glenwood for 10 years on a temporary basis. But I also have some sad news. My term is expired, and I'm not really ready to go for another 3-year term. But I also want to start entering art again, and I could possibly consider this one of those pedestals too, because I've got a lot of stuff. But I know, like Mike Lindsay, there's lots of people who have stuff that might be interested in doing that. So I can ask around.
Yeah, please do. And then just tell them to contact Lori if they are interested.
Okay.
Because
Susan, we did have a local artist who was eliminated when we met at CMC, Jim Mason.
Oh yeah, I know Jim.
Yeah,
He might have something.
Yes.
Well, Ann, would you contact Jim Mason and see if he's interested?
Yes, is the marble piece that was damaged gone? I wasn't clear from your answer.
Yeah, I drove past, and again, it looked like to me there are 3 marble bases. However, my understanding is there are only 2 marble bases officially. And if that's the case, there are sculptures on 2 of them. But there's this other thing that looked like a marble base, and it just had like a building's brick on it. So there's one empty marble, what looks like a marble base when you drive past it 70 miles an hour.
Oh, not on 3rd Street. But David, what about the piece called Chicago?
Chicago was a 1-year thing. That was at the corner of right across from Mia Casita, I think.
Yeah. Is that still?
That's empty and is going to stay empty, I think, according to what I read as Lori's last email about it.
Okay.
But I haven't, so I don't know what we're going to do about that.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts about Third Street?
Susan, one question. Would those works go back to the artists? Is that what would happen?
Yes, they belong to the artist. And it's my understanding that Richard Arnold would like very much to move his piece. He's the one with the eagle. So he's looking around for a place to take it. And I spoke to a man named Jeff Lyle. I'm sorry if I remember his name correctly, who is with the Aspen Valley Land Trust, if I said that correctly. And
That's correct.
they were talking about perhaps, and I suggested that he get with Lori, with Amy Kimberly about finding a spot for it, because they would like to, the owner, the artist would like to move the piece. So that would definitely open up something there. Last meeting, David brought up a great point of establishing action points for us to work on until we meet again. And I think that that is going to be a very beneficial project for us. Let me go over the action points that were presented. Thank you notes would be written to the Sopris Liquor and the Clay Center, and those were assigned to Anne, and she accomplished that task. Chris was going to write thank you notes to the two pieces that were purchased. Brian was going to contact and send out a blast for a call for local artists on 3rd Street. And we were also going to think about a date sometime this fall for a Public Works thank you lunch. So I really want to thank David for suggesting that. And I think it's just going to be easier for us to follow through on some things we've discussed in meetings. So the action points that I have been writing down during this meeting I need to get with Renee to get a final current budget. So that is my job, to get an updated budget. Anne and I will get together with Lori to go over the budget and to make sure that everything that needs to be paid has been paid, so that when we get back together in the October meeting, we'll know exactly how much money is left. Anne and I will work with the town in regards to reviewing how the money has been spent and the possibility of an increase in the budget. And we'll talk to Luis about that also. Luis, does that sound correct? In regards.
Yeah, that sounds correct. I think.
I know I just forgot something.
You're going to talk to the chamber.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote all that down. Chamber, thank you. The chamber on the bucks. So those are 4. What other action items can we think of? And Joe, I'm going to ask you as an action item, if you would please reach out to local artists and see if anyone is interested in a 3rd Street spot, especially you. When does your term expire? You're muted.
I think it expired probably 5 months ago. It's been a while.
I'm having a hard time letting go of you.
If I had only known. But one of the things I was hoping to do was get that helping hands painted, and kind of failed at that. But I think I could still get that done if we wanted to spend the money to powder coat it for $2,000. Lori had said something about having it painted with automobile paint, but I think you still have to have it sandblasted.
Yeah.
So,
And that,
yeah, but I can definitely reach out. And I'm available if anybody needs my help for anything. But I'm probably not going to reapply at this time for a board membership.
You said you wanted 1 year.
Oh, yeah, I asked for a 1 year if I could get that.
Well, apply for 3 and resign after 1.
I could do that.
We don't want you to go.
Okay. We've covered everything that I have on the agenda. So I'd like to open it up for any comments, any thoughts, anything that is not on the agenda. I want to hear from everybody before we think about closing out our meeting.
Well, I've got a thought, or just for sort of clarification kinds of things. The 1% for the arts does, building projects are supposed to devote that to the arts. Do they submit their proposal to CPAC? It sort of hints that CPAC has some discretion regarding those projects. And since we have a lot of building that's going to be going on, and it was about a year ago or more that I cannot remember the person's name, but came to this committee, talked about the potential storage thing by the electrical power plant, and they were going to be putting up big murals, et cetera. And Luis would know if the city's moving forward. The last I saw in the Sopra Sun was that, yeah, they're sort of moving forward. When that mural is going to happen, and that if that's part of the 1%, do we as a committee approve those kinds of things? There's also all sorts of stuff by what is the Sopra Center or something that's all going to be redone. I imagine there's artwork there. So as a committee, are they supposed to submit their art project, their art idea? Do we give advice? Are we bypassed and have no input?
That's a great question.
I think the latter.
Maybe, but it does
It's
say
not-
in the use of funds under resolution number 2005-14, it does say funds appropriate for art shall be transferred to the 1% fund established for this purpose. Then a whole bunch of the stuff, and it says except at the discretion of the Public Arts Commission. So it sounds like the Public Arts Commission has some sort of just something in here, discretion, and must have input, but maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Well, that money is specific to this commission. And it's specific to the upkeep of the permanent collection.
Well, it doesn't specify that. It just says,
Well, that's true. We could use it.
it says for selection, acquisition, purchase, commissioning, placement, installation, exhibition, and display.
Of art.
Uh-huh.
So we not just of sculpture, of art in general.
Right.
So that fund is established for supporting the arts.
That's how I read it, but then I probably have my biases.
No, it's
And I don't know. So it's mostly clarification of, are we more than the yearly sculpture exhibit and the permanent collection? Because there's this whole 1% commission.
I mean, I think those are valid questions, David. My recollection, and again, I think it needs some clarification from either Jay or just to look at the individual projects that you're referring to, is there's some division between the tasks to fill and then private development. So again, I'm not 100% sure if that's where this is sort of, that line is drawn, but I think there is some clarification that needs to be made there.
that'd be great.
Yeah, it would be helpful, because it seems like if a private enterprise is required to put up artwork, and it sort of sounds like it is, then it seems like in the interest of the town, one would want some sort of oversight, because saying the private group can invest their artwork and just do it willy-nilly for whatever they want may not be in the best interests of Carbondale. So
In my experience, there's typically two paths that can be taken with the 1% funds for art, and that private developer can commission artwork that exists on their development. And in that case, they typically have some leeway in what that is that they commission and approve and install because it's in their private space. And then the other option is that if they elect not to do that, then those funds typically go to the town. And in this case, it seems like it should be at the discretion of CPAC to see how those funds are used and identify locations where they would be the most impactful.
And I think in regard, oh, sorry.
That's just like a generality. I don't know how things have been written and constructed and conceived and the intentions behind this here, but those are common practices.
And as far as I know, I think the storage development that they're working with Carbondale Arts on that for that mural and the art that's going on.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I think that there is some relationship, and I'm not sure if it's just a matter of coordination and identifying artists, or if Amy would be able to answer whether or not there's actual funds that have gone from the developer to Carbondale Arts. But
Just out of curiosity, is there any other agency that's cited in that language that is cited as having oversight of the 1%, even
No.
a reference to it? And the 1% isn't reserved just for sculptural art, which is what we do. So that I'd love to hear more about that, Louis, about that language. What does this mean specifically? Clarification for us.
helpful. Also, Michael, what you said, I think it's helpful to me. And then I say, well, let's just pretend the private guy wants to put a statue of Robert E. Lee with the Confederate flag. It's on his property. He could, whatever. I think the town would not be real happy with that. And so maybe I'm not saying this committee should control everything, but where's there a balance between what some might consider outrageous to total control that the private guy, the private corporation gives up control? We don't want that either. I mean, so it may just need to be better defined.
we'll still have to submit for permitting, and we have to meet standards of free speech and all those issues, and it would be reviewed by the town in that regard for sure.
I think first we need to get that clarity about what exactly is our scope
Yes.
of obligation / authority as it pertains to public arts installations, for lack of a better word, both on private and public stuff. I mean, I thank you for sharing that, because I've never read that language, and it kind of, for me, it's like, wow, that's a much wider net of our scope of, as I said, whatever you want to call it, responsibilities and opportunities than I had realized. I thought of us solely as a sculptural art installation oversight organization, and maybe it is. I don't know.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Just in my experience with the boards and commissions, like, for example, the tree board is only, their purview is the town right of way. So for the tree board, anything that happens on private property, unless it impacts the town in some way, they don't have purview. Michael does confer with private owners, but as far as the tree board reviewing things, it's specifically within the town right of way. For the Historic Preservation Commission, they are an advisory commission just like this. So they can only advise the planning department on issues related to historic preservation. So by extension here, you might be able to advise, like with P&Z or something like that. Or maybe there's a liaison that goes to the P&Z meetings. if there's some art installations that are in question. But as an advisory commission, you don't have any power
Got it.
to
Yeah.
say yes or no.
And Jay has made it very clear that this is about public art on public property. And because we have been asked, I think twice now, about an installation on private property. And he says we need to stay out of that because part of our responsibility is maintaining our commitment to public art, and the town will not go on private property.
Okay. Yeah, so the 1% program is really for town of Carbondale improvements, and it's not town of Carbondale global, it's town of Carbondale as the public governmental town of Carbondale.
So no, this is a curiosity, and I'm not even sure it's pertinent to us as an organization, but it begs the question that so if there's someone, an endeavor from the private sector to do development here in some shape or form, and they're incentivized or somehow offer to participate in the public arts, who does oversee that? Is that just, and then that's like a CCAH thing? That's because we're really just about art that is exhibited in public spaces,
Yes.
non-private. So if we know that private entities may offer to provide some type of art as part of their development, as incentive to get their development passed, not in our purview. And then I just am so curious I guess it gets, okay. I think I get my answer for that.
Susan and I have been to Jay twice.
No, it would make sense. And it goes
Yes.
by probably the, I can't think of the board, but it's not under us.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah, planning and zoning. And that makes sense.
And then
So-
that would be your responsibility as a private citizen. to
Got it. That
address
makes sense.
Planning and zoning, if there's something. in question.
Yeah. So those are yeah, okay.
Or you could go as a CPAC member, but.
Right, but it really happens under P and Z and probably with some coordination with Carbondale Arts. I'm guessing, just I don't know that. but
Depending on the.
Yeah, who knows?
But I think David raises some questions that I'm not clear on, and with the 1% program, is that for private development or just like are they committing 1% to public art, or is it just if the town of Carbondale does a development, they're committing 1% of the budget to public art?
That
It's-
would be a clarification
Well-
through the planning department or the budget. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Well, I think I may have, misinterpreted things, but this resolution has to do with the 1% for the arts is certain town capital improvement projects.
That's clear.
So it means to me, the town of Carbondale, not the private world. It's
Gotcha.
and that's where, okay, so if they want to build a new town hall, there's going to be 1% of that has to go to the art, and then this committee would be involved with that, I think, is how this would read. I think.
So with the swimming pool, for instance, that project should be integrating public art, and it should be 1% of that budget, and we should be involved in reviewing those.
Yeah,
plans.
it's a public, right? If that's the public pool, yeah. I think you're.
Great, that's clear.
David, I have a task for you. Would you please get with Renee? And, Renee is, she works with all of the budgets at Town Hall. And would you get a clear understanding? Because we always get confused on the 1%. So if you will do the research and then incorporate, and then also fold in the question that you had on this resolution, and also the sale of the pieces and how that breaks down. So would you like to accept the task?
Oh, yes, no problem.
Hey, David.
Can I go with you on that?
Sure.
That-
Yeah,
Great.
very interested.
Love to look at it too.
Yeah, you'd
I
be a
mean,
really good-
yeah, I think that I have some experience in that realm and would love to look at it. And if it doesn't, I think it's clear. It sounds like it's just for capital projects for the town of Carbondale, but there, there would be some huge value in exploring how to expand that to include private development too. And I don't think that we would discourage development by asking them to contribute to that. So, things to consider.
Do we have any other things to discuss before we dismiss?
Susan, actually, just one question. In regards to Michael's application for CPAC, is it something that you guys vote on today, or did you say he had to be at 3 meetings before you vote on it?
3 meetings.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I don't know if it was on, it doesn't look like it was on the record that I was at the last meeting. But I'll let you guys decide whether or not that's, this is the first meeting or second meeting.
Yeah, Kay will have a record of that. Thank you.
I'll double check.
You have my vote.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion.
We're gonna do the discussion of when to have that party next time, when Lori's here then, right?
What's the party? For the public works. guys,
Public Works people.
To acknowledge them and just thank them, the guys who do all the install.
So that goes next meeting then, right?
I've got it. I've got an action point on that.
Brilliant.
A motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Beth made it.
Thank you. Beth made a motion to adjourn and Ann made a second. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Good.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.